Welcome, Nina Barzegar. I'm so happy to be talking with you because your piece is going to be performed this September 6th as part of Cutting Edge Concerts New Music Festival. And I want to know more about you as a composer and about your work in particular. Now, I know that you are, in addition to being a composer and a pianist, you're also an actress, and you've gotten your degrees from the University of Tehran, and you are currently a doctoral student at the University of California in Santa Cruz, and that you've been here since 2021. And just this year, congratulations, you had a piece performed at the Ojai Festival. That's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
So tell us a little bit, something that I haven't covered, the important information about you and your work.
Yeah, actually, you almost covered all the things that I do. But regarding my music composition, I compose mainly intuitively, but my compositions are based on um, Western classical music techniques and Iranian music. It's a kind of fusion of different techniques. And I started music with classical music, and I was trained classically. So unconsciously, it really impacted my style. But in recent decade, I can say that I started to learn about Iranian classical music techniques and musical elements, and I try to kind of make a combination of the techniques that I know in my music. Um,
So
Actually, each
one question about that.
okay.
I know that you have said that there are elements of Iranian music, such as quarter tones and ornamentation. Has any of that found its way into your music?
In the vulnerable, you mean?
Yeah, well, specifically in this piece, Vulnerable.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, of course. Actually, I didn't use quarter tones, which are standard quarter tones in Iranian classical music because I wrote this piece during, pandemic, and I was working with Brian when I was in Iran, and it was really difficult to communicate with a performer to, make sure whether that quarter tones are in the precise way or not. So I decided not to use them, but I used some musical elements of specific daskas and avazes in Iranian music. The piece starts with some musical elements of dashti, which is a avaz, which is a short version of daskah system in Iranian music, and there are specific melodic gestures and harmonic gestures which are inspired by Iranian music. At the music goes as the music goes further, it uses there are some modulations to another daskas, charga, which is very famous, and then again it goes back to Dashti. But I can say that I was inspired by this because it's not the techniques and musical elements are not used conventionally. So um, yeah, actually, I
Question:
as
could
okay,
you uh, tell us more about Dashki and Dashtar? What are
Dashti.
Dashti?
Dashti is a avaz in Iranian music is a combination of seven daskas and five avazes. Avaz are a kind of shorter version, smaller version of daska. But Dashti is a very famous avaz, which has been used a lot in even Iranian pop music, and it's if we don't use the quarter tones, it's a little close to Frisian mode. But there are some specific melodic gestures that I take from Dashti and use
Is
them
it
in my music.
is it a melody? Is it a scale? Is it a rhythm?
Actually, Iranian music Daska system is based on tetrachords. There are a combination of tetrachords which create Daska system, and there are melodic gestures in these certain tetrachords, and sometimes. For example, when you are using certain accidentals in the lower octave, it might be different from that one in the upper octave. And I use this. There are, a lot of subtleties and, details that, need time to explain, but I can say that this piece was more specifically inspired by Dashti Awaz.
Now, it's written for solo cello. And
Yeah.
does the cello relate to an Iranian instrument, or is this purely based on your classical background?
Uh, Yeah, actually, there are some timbre. For example, when cello is applying sulpanticello technique, the timbre is close to Kamanche, and Kamanche also is a bowed instrument. Uh, and there are some in terms of timbre and maybe some techniques. There are some similarities between these two instruments, but not actually. I was mainly following the classical, conventional classical styles of cello to write this piece.
Now, the word vulnerable, of course, has a lot of associations, and you had mentioned pain and hurt and various emotions that are part of your piece. Could you elaborate on that a little bit and let our audience know what emotions specifically to listen for in your piece?
Uh, yeah, actually, it's something that I want to disclose. I, each piece of music is a self-discovery for me, and there's a story behind each piece of music. And if the listener follows some certain motifs and some certain melodic gestures, they can find, kind of development of certain gestures throughout the piece, and each melodic gesture or motif which are developed are does have some meaning for me, and there are some story behind each of them, but in general I don't want my listener to follow my story. I want them to just listen and find what they listen to.
Understood, understood. Now, did you and Brian meet in person in Iran or in Cleveland?
No, we just met online. Hopefully we will meet in
Oh, that's
September.
wonderful.
Yeah.
So the first time you're actually going to be meeting is at the dress rehearsal of this concert.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But uh, I really loved Brian's performance. Actually, this piece is, I can describe the piece as unshielded solo music, which involves the performer with an abundance of subtleties, which cannot should not be neglected. It demands a lot of practice to be felt profoundly. But uh, indeed, Brian did this with his wonderful performance, and I really enjoyed his performance.
Yes, indeed. Now, I know there is something called the Iranian Female Composers Association. Are
Yeah,
you a member of that?
yeah, yes, I am.
So that's very wonderful that there's a group of people. Are they all over the world or in this country?
In the United States, in Iran, in Europe, all around the world, and I got familiar with Brian through IFCA members. Actually, there was a call for scores, and hopefully, I could get familiar with Brian.
Now, as an Iranian woman composer, I'm sure you're very aware of the situation for women in Iran. And
Yeah.
I wonder if you could tell us a bit about your feelings regarding that.
It's actually, yeah, it cannot be uttered in words, honestly. Even if I don't want to think about it, I dream about it. So it's like when you are far from Iran, it is really, it it is also much more difficult when you feel that you cannot do anything. And also, you know, there are a lot of restrictions and censorship in Iran, and we cannot talk about any subject openly. And when I want to express something on my social media account, you know, I'm afraid, okay, I want to get back to Iran. I'm afraid of not getting any problem later. And it's really difficult. You know, I was in Iran when the movement, women life freedom started to happen, and I attended protests and demonstrations. It was really heart-wrenching, and um, but we hope that something happen in the future. But
Yes.
you know, since then, Iranian women, that due to mandatory dress codes in Iran, women are forced to cover their hair and wear hijab. But now, um, they are breaking the rules, and they are, not wearing their hijab outside. And of course, there are morality police, which confronts them. But they are still fighting, and it's been more than 44 decades that the women have been fighting in Iran.
Now, in terms of your musical education at the university in Iran, how would you compare that with your studies here in America?
Honestly, music education has made significant progress, particularly in the past 2 decades. And we don't have any problem in music education, and musicians are truly updated. But the
Hmm.
problem is that the absence of government backing for independent musicians who are not related to governors, who don't work for the governors, or they promote their, you know, purposes. Uh, it caused composers to migrate extensively, due to lack of having any prospect for the future. I'm here, I couldn't have this support that I have here. I learned music. I very well, I wrote this piece when I was in Iran, but I didn't have any support, and having my pieces being performed is really difficult. It's really expensive, because great performers are involved with, um, their income. They are involved with teaching, so you cannot find performers available. There are handful of performers available which are really expensive to be paid, and it's not, and the festivals are not supported by governments. The problem is that the music as a major is threatened every day by governors, because they say it's against religion, and it's against religious rules, and it's the problem. But in private institutes, there are music is prevalent among the society, because
Mhm.
maybe 9 out of 10 person in the society can play musical instrument. But the problem is that it stops at one certain stage, and you have to go abroad to make progress, because there is no support inside.
Well, we're very glad you're here and that you have opportunities to have
Yeah,
performances. And,
exactly.
yeah, we're looking forward to meeting you in September and for
Same
you and
here.
Ryan to actually have a face-to-face meeting. So this is wonderful. And I thank you so much for your excellent comments and giving us some background, both for yourself and for your music. And we look forward to seeing you in just a few months.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nina Barzegar,
Same
thank you
here.
so much.
Thank you so much.